Humanity has been threatened by pandemic diseases many times throughout history, just as it is today. Diseases, epidemics, and mass deaths are neither the first nor the last. Some have claimed thousands or millions of lives, while others have caused immense suffering. Here are those diseases that have plagued humanity. Malaria, an acute febrile illness caused by Plasmodium parasites, transmitted to humans through the bites of infected female Anopheles mosquitoes. Diagnosis is easy. Treatment and prevention are possible, and malaria has been known since ancient times. The first to record the disease were the ancient Egyptians. Between 460–370 BC, Hippocrates observed a disease in marshy areas characterized by recurring fever and spleen enlargement, noting that it could appear in 4 different forms. It was long believed that the disease was caused by inhaling poisonous gases, odors released from swamps after sunset, and because it was more common in marshy and wetland areas, people thought it did not spread at night. That's why Italian physician Francesco Torti named it malaria, meaning bad air in Italian. Malaria caused mass deaths in ancient times and still poses the same danger today. After World War I, Russia recorded 5 million malaria cases, 60,000 of which were fatal. In 1934, out of 3 million cases, 100,000 died in Ceylon. The first outbreak in the Americas occurred in Brazil in 1938, killing 14,000 of 100,000 patients. The epidemic jumped to the Nile Valley in 1942, causing 12,000 deaths in Egypt and later killed 15,000 in Ethiopia. Following wars and natural disasters, major outbreaks devastated the Caribbean, killing 75,000 people in Haiti in 1963. Measles. Some diseases ruin your life even if they don't kill you. Measles is one of them. Measles, or rubeola, is a highly contagious childhood disease caused by the morbillivirus. It was first described by Razi in 860 AD. The disease was defined in the second half of the 17th century, and measles epidemics began to be recognized from the 18th century onward. Although vaccines have been developed today, measles has been a persistent nightmare throughout history. Yellow fever. Yellow fever is an acute viral disease that ranges from flu-like symptoms to severe liver failure and hemorrhagic fever. The first yellow fever outbreaks erupted in the 1700s in Italy, France, Spain, and England. In 19th century Spain, an estimated 300,000 people died in epidemics. During the 1802 Haitian Revolution, half of the French army was wiped out by the disease. Outbreaks in other parts of the Western Hemisphere in the early 20th century killed thousands, until volunteer-led research proved mosquitoes were the primary vector, leading to vaccine development and preventive measures. Leprosy, Hansen's disease. For centuries, leprosy has been one of the most feared diseases, inspiring countless literary and cinematic works. It has 4 types: indeterminate, borderline, tuberculoid, and lepromatous, the latter being the worst. In lepromatous leprosy, immune resistance is completely destroyed. The causative bacilli are numerous and highly active. The skin develops small to large, symmetrical, shiny copper-red patches with indistinct borders. Affected areas eventually lose sensation. Hard, light brown nodules called lepromas appear on the face, neck, nipples, and genitals. When they settle on the face, they create the characteristic lion face. Leprosy also causes saddle nose deformity, perforation of the palate, drooping eyelids, hoarseness, and spontaneous finger-toe loss. Even when cured, it always leaves scars. Internal organ damage is common: liver destruction, infertility, bone destruction, deep bone decay, eye involvement, and blindness. Leprosy is a contagious bacterial disease primarily affecting the peripheral, nervous system and skin, though the chance of transmission is extremely low. For years, it was not considered contagious, yet it was feared almost as much as the plague. The idea of human-to-human transmission remains largely hypothetical, as it has never been definitively proven. In ancient times, it was also called Musk. Disease. Cholera. 7 major cholera pandemics have struck civilization, but the deadliest was the third, 1852-1860. The main cause was contaminated drinking water, though this wasn't understood until that pandemic. For centuries, human waste mixed with drinking and cooking water sources. The epicenter was India, home to the Ganges, still one of the world's most polluted rivers. A 2011 study found 1.1 billion fecal bacteria per 100 milliliter, 500,000 times worse than the dirtiest water considered safe for bathing. Hindus believe bathing in the Ganges is sacred and use its water daily, making cholera endemic there. The 19th century pandemic spread across India, Afghanistan, and Russia, officially killing 1 million in Russia alone, then reached Europe, Africa, and finally, America. 1 in 5 patients developed life-threatening diarrhea. Half of those died without rapid treatment. Total deaths from all 7 pandemics are in the millions. After the third pandemic, doctors identified the cause, and water purification and boiling became widespread. Cholera is an acute, severe diarrheal disease caused by the bacterium Vibrio cholerae. Outbreaks hit Japan in 1817, Moscow in 1826, Berlin, Paris, and London in 1831. Migrants from London brought it to Canada, followed by massive death tolls. Hamburg suffered a major outbreak in 1892. The Ottoman Empire's worst epidemic struck during the 1912-1913 Balkan Wars, devastating soldiers and refugees. Cholera remains highly lethal and still kills thousands annually. Vaccines exist, Dukoral, Mutacol, etc., but they provide only moderate protection and have side effects, so many countries do not use them. Research continues for an ideal vaccine. Historical cholera deaths are counted in the millions. Smallpox. When Europeans discovered the New World in the 15th century, they brought viruses and bacteria that devastated indigenous populations. Smallpox had killed a third of Europe's population, but Native Americans, lacking immunity and adequate medicine, had no chance. Millions died. Up to 90% of some populations were wiped out, making European colonization far easier. By the early 19th century, 1 in 2 Native Americans had died from European diseases. Smallpox, variola, was a severe contagious disease causing pus-filled blisters, fever, and permanent facial scarring. The vaccine is credited to English surgeon Edward Jenner, inspired by Lady Mary Wortley Montagu's observations of inoculation practices in Istanbul in the 1700s. There are 2 forms, variola major, higher mortality, and variola minor, FIS 76, Coccolisteli. Hemorrhagic fever epidemic. The 1576 hemorrhagic fever epidemic in New Spain, modern Mexico, killed millions through 1 or more diseases known locally as Coccolistli. The cause remains unknown, but may have been a native hemorrhagic fever, possibly worsened by the worst drought in 500 years and the collapse of indigenous living conditions after Spanish invasion. Some historians suggested typhus, measles, or smallpox, but symptoms did not match. The Nahuatl word Coccolistli means pestilence. Physician Francisco Hernandez, who witnessed the outbreak, described high fever, severe headache, vertigo, black tongue, dark urine, dysentery, severe chest and abdominal pain, head and neck nodules, neurological disorders, jaundice, and profuse bleeding from nose, eyes, and mouth. Death occurred in 3 to 4 days. Approximately 15 million people perished. Spanish flu, H1N1. The Spanish flu was a deadly H1N1 influenza pandemic that raged from 1918 to 1920, killing 50 million people, up to 15% of the world's population, in just 18 months, making it one of history's deadliest pandemics. Unusually, it killed healthy young adults rather than the very young, old, or weak. It struck during the final months of World War I and may have helped end the war. First detected on March 11, 1918, In New Mexico, USA, it peaked worldwide between September and November 1918, affecting every country, including Turkey. India lost 17 million, 5% of its population. The U.S. saw 28% infection rate and 500,000, 675,000 deaths. Britain lost 250,000. France, 400,000. In Fiji, 14% of the population died in 2 weeks. Notable victims included Max Weber, Gustav Klimt, King Alfonso III of Spain, and Sigmund Freud's daughter Sophie. According to Metin Ozata's book, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk also contracted it while preparing to leave for Samsun and recovered at his home in Beşiktaş. Nazım Hikmet described it. "We are the people of Istanbul. We saw mobilization, Caucasians, Galicians, Çanakkale, Palestinians, wagon trade, typhus and Spanish fever, plus the Unionists and a long-barreled German boot finished us from 1914 to 1918. Asian flu, H2N2. In 1957, an influenza A virus that mutated in ducks in China killed approximately 4 million people worldwide. It was stopped by a vaccine. 40 million doses were administered in 1 year, HIV/AIDS. The first detectable HIV virus jumped from monkeys to humans in 1959 in Congo, but it was only identified and named in the 1980s. In the last 30-plus years, it has killed 36 million people, and there is still no cure, only lifelong medication. AIDS is the final stage of HIV infection, when the immune system collapses, leaving the body defenseless against infections and cancers. First cases were reported in 1981 in New York and California. The virus was identified in 1983, and screening tests arrived in 1985. It likely originated in Africa, spreading rapidly in the 1980s due to urbanization, long-distance travel, and changing sexual practices. In 2004, 38 million people lived with HIV. 5 million were newly infected, and 3 million died annually. Between 1981 and 2008, 20 million died from AIDS. And finally, our star of the show, the plague. Present since ancient times, the plague has killed millions and is also known as the Black Death. It wiped out massive portions of populations throughout the ages. In the Middle Ages, 1347-1353, it killed 1/3 of Europe's population. Venice's population fell from 130,000 to 70,000. The plague of Antoninus, 165 to 180 AD, killed 30% of the 5 million people in Europe, West Asia, and North Africa. The plague of Justinian, 541-542, devastated the Byzantine Empire, especially Constantinople, the Sasanian Empire, and Mediterranean port cities, one of history's deadliest pandemics. Over the following 2 centuries, recurring outbreaks killed 50 million. The Black Death of 1346 to 1350 killed 200 million across the Middle East, India, China, and Europe. You may be worried about your health because coronavirus is threatening the world and causing thousands of deaths. When we reach a certain level of understanding, we all learn this. People are born, grow up, and die. But death doesn't always come peacefully in a hospital bed. The greatest truth of life is death. Nothing seems more real than death. No matter how hard we fight it, death will ultimately win. I remember a line from an old movie. No one is careful enough to live forever, but we can try, can't we? Humanity is not yet strong enough to control nature. We cannot stop a volcanic eruption or an earthquake. Tiny viruses that leave the entire body defenseless are the same. But we keep trying. That's all we can do. We have only one life, and we struggle to protect it. In these difficult times, our heartfelt thanks go to the healthcare workers who have sacrificed their lives. See you in the next video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button to support me. Take good care of yourselves. Goodbye.